So if you accept that as you've been living, you've launched rockets and that there is a vibrational version of you, we wanted so much for you to accept the reality of that vibrational version that we manifested it for you in words by calling it something. We called it for a while a vibrational reality. You didn't like that very much. And then we began calling it a vortex, because it's a vortex that law of attraction is gathering all of the components to. And it is gaining momentum and speed and size and depth and prowess and everything. It's becoming, it's a state of becoming. And as you begin tuning to it, you can be one of the cooperative components that's drawn into it too. So when you allow yourself to be of the vibrational frequency of your own desire, then law of attraction will put you and your own desire in the same place where you can then begin translating it or perceiving it into reality. These are odd words, aren't they? We'll say them more simply. You can turn thoughts to things. That's how you turn thoughts to things. You turn thoughts to things by becoming harmonic with the thoughts, steadily with the thoughts. That's why you're doing exactly that same thing when we talk about your concern about your physical decline.
Having my thoughts stuck in the past.
Your humanity is turning those thoughts to things. So more people are having more of those experiences because their thoughts that are rampant and steady and chronic are turning to those things. It's for no other reason. Thoughts are turning to things. You've just got to decide what things you would like your thoughts to turn to, and then you've got to think those kinds of thoughts that turn into those kinds of things. That was a nice run. Did you get that? So you want to think the thoughts that are going to turn to the things you want. That means if you look at more of the things you want, you'll think more of the thoughts about the things you want. And if you look at the things you don't want, you're thinking more of the thoughts about the things you don't want. See how it works? So in order to distract you from all of this, because you see, when you become those who are just sifting through the data, then you're thinking thoughts about wanted and you're thinking thoughts about unwanted, and you're getting some of all of it. And so how do you begin to clarify your thought? Well, you have to become a selective sifter. You have to care about the way you feel while you think the thought. And so until you care about the way you feel, you're not going to be a very selective sifter. If you're using the criteria, well, it's true. Esther said to us many times in the beginning, but Abraham, it's true. And we said, are you saying it's a reality for someone? Is that what you mean? It's true. It's a reality for someone. Well, the reason it's a reality for someone is because they gave their attention to it. End of story. That's all that it is. You get what you think about, whether you want it or not. So we understand why there are those who are trying to get you to get back, deeper to the beginning of some of your thoughts so that maybe you could think them differently. But that's why, as you pointed out in your opening comments to us, we're talking to you about being general rather than specific, because as you become general, you become less likely to focus upon the reality that is not wanted. So if we were standing in your physical shoes and there were aspects of life that we want to live, we would focus upon them as specifically as we have time to do it. But if there are aspects of physical life that we were not wanting to turn to things for us, then we would focus upon them as little as possible. We would make it more vague. We would get really general about it. And what you begin to discover is that the more you focus upon something, the more specific it becomes. The more specific it becomes, the faster the energy moves. The faster the energy moves, the more you are turning those thoughts to things in your life experience. So it makes sense, doesn't it, to give your attention to things that you want to turn to things, and to withdraw your attention from those things that you don't want to turn to things. But how do you stop thinking about something? How do you stop thinking about something? I'm going to stop thinking about that thing that I've been thinking about. Well, you're thinking about it while you're thinking about not thinking about it. I'm not going to think about that thing anymore. I'm not going to think about that thing that I'm not going to think about that thing anymore. But you're thinking about it, aren't you? You're thinking about that thing while you're decided you're not going to think about it. So you've got to think about something else. And in the beginning, the thing that you're going to think about is pretty much like the thing that you decided you weren't going to think about, because law of attraction is only giving you things that are in that vibrational vicinity. But if you are determined to improve the way you feel, Then you become more and more general until you find a way of thinking about it that feels better. So let's just take a moment or 2 or 3 or 6 minutes and do that here. Let's find a way of taking that subject that doesn't feel good when you think about it and making it general enough that you feel better about it. And then we'll just leave it in that better feeling place. So you tell us what you intended to talk about relative to this physical stuff when you sat down here. But instead of telling us how it is, we want you to make a strong statement, if you can, about how you want it to be. Brief and strong.
My body responds to my thoughts.
All right, so that's a pretty good statement. It's a strong statement of focus. My physical body responds to my thoughts. How do you all feel about that? Do you believe that? My body responds to my thoughts? Given what we've talked about here just now, my body responds to my thoughts. My body responds to my thoughts. So that's a statement that you may or may not believe, but let's use it as a point of focus. Is there an advantage to believing that your body responds to your thoughts? Why? Because that means you've got some control, doesn't it? In other words, it's not responding to the plastic bottles that my water is in. It's not responding to the rays of the sun. My body responds to my thoughts. My body responds to my thoughts about all of those things, but my body responds to my thoughts. My body responds to my thoughts. So now let's try to find some things that you also believe that support that statement. My body responds to my thoughts.
If I'm feeling good, I can expect to have a good feeling body.
All right, now that's true. How is this conversation causing you to feel? Just keep talking until you can feel whether you're improving the way you feel or making worse the way you feel. My body responds to my thoughts, and I can't control my thoughts. My body responds to my thoughts, and I've been watching all of those commercials, and I believe that my body is declining. My body responds to my thoughts, but my thoughts about my body are not that good. You see what we're getting at? My body responds to my thoughts, but I can't control my thoughts. So there's some cleaning up that we've got to do. My body responds to my thoughts. So now you want to say something about your thoughts that makes that feel good to you, not bad to you. My body responds to my thoughts, and
after this conversation, I now know things differently.
My body responds to my thoughts, and often my thoughts feel good to me. My body responds to my thoughts, and often my thoughts feel good to me, especially when I'm not thinking thoughts about my body. My body responds to my thoughts, and there are so many things in my world that make me happy when I think about them. My body responds to my thoughts, and this time-space reality is abundant with beautiful things for me to focus upon. My body responds to my thoughts, and I believe that my body knows what to do. My body responds to my thoughts, and my inner being has thoughts about my body. My inner being has thoughts about my body. I wonder if my body responds to the thoughts my inner being has about my body. Feeling something happening here? I wonder if my body is responding to the thoughts that my inner being has about my body. Oh, I wonder if the negative emotion that I feel when I'm thinking about my body is present because what my inner being thinks about my body and what I sometimes think about my body are not the same thing. My inner being is optimistic about my body. My inner being is appreciative of my body. My inner being understands my body. The cells of my body are responsive to my inner being. My thoughts either allow that communication or disallow that communication. My thoughts could get in the way of my body's response to my inner being. But when they do, I will always feel negative emotion. So if I can find a way of more often feeling positive emotion, then that means I'm allowing more open communication between the thoughts that my inner being has. This is a sort of breakthrough. Can you feel this? My body is responding to the thoughts that my inner being has about my body, and my body will thrive unless my thoughts about my body are hindering my body's response to the way my inner being is thinking about my body. This is big. I want to open the valve. I want to open the flow. I want the source within me. I want the thoughts my inner being has about my magnificent body. I just can feel how eager I was about coming into this body. This body is serving me so well. This body is intelligent cells, trillions of intelligent cells that are consciousness, that are communicating with the source within me. And if I can just manage to stay out of the way of that, if I can focus on things that feel good. Do I think about things that feel good? Well, when I think about my body, not so much these days. How about when I think about finances? Do they feel good? How about when I think about world events? Do they feel good? How about when I think about global warming? Do they feel good? What thoughts am I thinking? What thoughts am I thinking? And how much allowing am I allowing the cells of my body? Am I giving the cells of my body the break that they need in order to receive pure communication between source? Or have I got my airwaves all cluttered up with all the things that I'm worried about? Do you? You see what we're getting at? This was a good conversation, because the thoughts that you think and the way that you feel. So far, what have we accomplished here? Have we moved forward? We've moved forward in a really extraordinary way just now. We've had a conversation that we've not ever had before in just the way we've had it before. This is a breakthrough conversation relative to your physical body, or relative to anything that you want, but specifically relative to your physical body. Your inner being, the larger part of you, the part that existed before you came into this body, who still exists and still is dominant, is having thoughts about everything that matters to you. Are your thoughts getting in the way of those thoughts? Are you harmonizing with your desire, or are you harmonizing with a reality? Our favorite conversation ever about deliberate creating. You create your own reality. You can find thoughts that feel good. When we come back from segment of refreshment, we'll talk further with you about things that matter to you. But before these hours in this room have passed, you will understand exactly how it is you're turning your thoughts to things, and what soft, subtle, easy changes you might make in order to be a vibrational match to your desires rather than to your current beliefs. When your current desire and your current belief are vibrationally similar, then you are allowing those thoughts to turn to things. But when your desires are vibrationally different than your beliefs, then you introduce resistance to the subject that prevents the becoming in the way you want it to. And the difference is so subtle that it will knock your socks off. Once you find one subject in your life in which you are productively focused, and you are able to make the association between the results that you're getting as you're turning those thoughts to things, you'll be able to apply it to everything, even the hard stuff. And this is a far more effective process than taking the time to go back to figure out where it got started, because it doesn't matter where it got started, it only matters where it is. And where it is can change in an hour.
Dear fellow listeners, it's a thrill to share with you the remarkable impact these positive affirmations, inspired by Abraham, had on my physical well-being. For quite some time, I was burdened by a nagging pain in one of my shoulders. It seemed to intensify every time I fell under stress or strain. However, as I allowed these affirmations to permeate my consciousness, I experienced a profound shift in my physical. As my outlook on my body underwent a transformation, the chronic shoulder pain astonishingly disappeared. By sharing these personal experiences with you, I'm hopeful that it might trigger a positive change in your life too.